Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story in which our OP got into a tough situation but came out of it like a boss. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Sure, I'll take down my negative Yelp review. This happened to me a few years ago. I was owed a significant sum of money by the company which handles my doctor's billing. She worked at a large healthcare system which outsourced billing to this company. For months and months, I tried via email and phone to get the money back. But each contact, I was treated rudely or ignored. They'd either say they're working on it or would act like I'd never requested the money in the first place and needed to start the process over. It was maddening. One day, after receiving another rude email from this company, I decided to leave a Yelp review on my doctor's page. I essentially said that while the doctor and her staff were helpful and professional, the billing company they used was atrocious and made the entire experience not worth it. Lo and behold, the very next day, I get a call from the CEO of the billing company. He asks what the problem is, and I explain. He says, "Okay, I'll make sure the money gets sent ASAP. Could you please take the review down?" Apparently, he was getting angry calls from my doctor, and he seemed pretty pressured to get it taken down. I respond that I can take the review down after I get my money back. He gladly accepts my offer. A week later, there's a check in the mail. Here's the thing, though. I never specified how long until I would take the review down after I get the money, so I wait a week. Get some calls and texts from the CEO, ignore them, wait another week, respond that I'm having technical problems logging into Yelp, but should have it resolved soon. After about 6 months of him reaching out and me being as unhelpful as possible, I finally took it down. The next time I returned to that doctor's office, it was a whole new billing system. Not sure if my review made a difference, but it was sweet, malicious compliance regardless. Edit. I went back to review my correspondences with the billing company. It made me realize the whole situation was even more screwed up than I had originally described here. The reason they owed me money was because at first my insurance had told me they were not going to cover the appointments because the doctor was not in network. However, I'd found the doctor through my insurance website. When I went back to check, the doctor's name was no longer listed on their website. Luckily for me, I'd taken a screenshot at the time so I could have the phone number for the doctor on hand. After I sent the insurance company the screenshot, they agreed to cover the appointments. They paid the billing company, yet the billing company refused to refund me the money I'd paid. So essentially, they were collecting from both myself and the insurance company and trying to get away with it. American healthcare in a nutshell. Also, when I told my wife about this post, she told me I needed to make a correction. The CEO sent me a check within 4 days. It wasn't even an entire week. After months and months of reaching out. This makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. I wonder if the CEO kept getting follow-up calls from the doctor's office about the review. And our second story. How dare you give my mom thousands of dollars? For those who don't know, real estate agents often earn about 3% of the sale price for each side of the sale. The whole commission might be 6%, which would mean the buyer's agent and seller's agent brokerages each get 3%, which is then split further in most cases, with part going to the brokerage, part going to the agent. The part going to the agent pays for the agent's advertising costs, professional fees, taxes, health insurance, and so on. However, commissions are always negotiable too, and people routinely ask for discounts and such. In certain cases, I've agreed to provide discounts. This is the story of the deepest discount I ever offered. I guess it started when I sold Mr. and Mrs. Elderly their new home. They just sold the one they raised their family in and were ready to downsize to something more manageable now that their health was in decline. They were in their 70s after all. We found a cute little ranch home with a small yard and they were thrilled with it. Their son helped them with so much. He helped them look at houses, helped them with maintenance, mowed their lawn. He was genuinely a good guy. Their $100,000 offer was accepted and they closed on the sale without a problem. Another client was very disappointed. His family looked at the house and wanted to buy it, but their credit wasn't quite ready to get a loan, and it was at the very top of their budget anyway. Fast forward 9 or 10 months. Mrs. Elderly calls me. "We want to sell this house," she says. Turns out her husband's mental health has been in decline, and he's now addicted to the home shopping network. He spent $10,000 in the prior month on stuff they couldn't use. He was depressed and unhappy with their home because it didn't have a basement, and his anxiety over the possibility of a tornado striking just kept growing. Not unreasonably, I suppose, as this house was in central Missouri, where tornadoes are not exactly rare. But the problem is that house prices have not gone up enough to cover the commission and closing costs while paying off their new mortgage. By my calculations, they'd have to bring around $7,000 to the table if they sold to a new buyer at market value. I felt bad for them, though, and I knew my other client had finally gotten to where they could buy at the original house price. I'd have to work for free to help them both, something that would take around 20 to 60 more hours of my time, depending on whatever hiccups came along. The couple was thrilled when I informed them that I could help them make their sale happen if that same buyer purchased it. That buyer was thrilled when I informed him he could buy it, even though it was at the max price he could get a loan for. They get into contract. Mr. and Mrs. Elderly moved to their daughter's house about 25 miles away. I never knew they had a daughter. I'd met their son at least 8 times, but daughter? Never even heard her mentioned before. Mrs. Elderly says, well, she really wanted us to come stay with her because she's a nurse and Mr. Elderly just isn't doing well. Buyer's credit issues throw some obstacles in the way. Then Mr. Elderly gets even sicker and isn't put into a nursing home. He's delusional, and I have to get a doctor's written opinion on whether he's mentally astute enough to sign the contract paperwork as we continue with the transaction. It's horrible there. The nursing home has calendars in patients' rooms that are branded to a funeral home. People are calling out for help in the hallways, etc. I've not seen the daughter, but Mrs. Elderly's begun hinting at being dissatisfied, and when I probed, it turns out her daughter's putting garbage ideas in her head that I'm somehow taking advantage of them. When I saw their son, I gently inquired about her. He told me he didn't get along with her, that when he thought she wanted them to live with her because she was just trying to gain access to their retirement income. 2 days before closing, I need to review their closing documents with them. Mr. Elderly has already signed his part, but Mrs. Elderly wants her daughter with her before she signs hers. I visit with her at her daughter's dining table, and daughter's there along with the ambushing attorney. As I'm reviewing the documents, she's challenging every single dollar as if I can control how much the title company charges or the tax amounts. She finally speaks up and says, my parents aren't getting any money at all here. How dare you take advantage of them like this? She wanted me to chip in to pay for part of the closing costs, which were coming in at a little over $1,000. The final straw for me was when she called me a scammer. I said, I'll walk away right now and let this sale go. You're more than welcome to find another real estate agent who'll work for free and give your parents $6,000 worth of services at no cost. I started to gather my things. The attorney, fortunately, was not stupid and intervened, telling her that she probably should let me complete the sale. I left and the closing happened a couple days later, so the house that Mr. Elderly didn't want was no longer a burden to him and his wife. I'm pretty sure she meant to say, I'm not getting anything out of this. And our last story. No, I didn't forget what you've done for me. Little background. Roughly 10 years ago, I was overseas. When things got ugly in the area I was in, I wasn't able to get on the airplane and was out of cash and unable to use my bank cards. I called my family to see if they can help. My parents weren't able as they were low on funds due to just purchasing a home. My aunt and uncle, on the other hand, were worth nearly $1 million at the time. They refused to help me and say I made a stupid choice to travel to an unstable area. The revenge. My aunt and uncle weren't good with managing their money and winded up pretty much living on their fixed retirement pension. The irony, their favorite subject is to talk about how people nowadays rely too much on others, wants a handout, doesn't want to work for what they have. Oh, and of course, they never let me forget the time I came to them for help when I was stuck outside the USA. They managed to scrape together just enough money to move to Texas. Guess what? Hurricane Harvey effed them over, took everything they have, leaving them without anything but wet clothes on their back. Now they're begging everybody for money. Most of my family were able to provide only a bit of money. I, on the other hand, inherited a house from my grandpa a few years ago, have a good job, living decently, and have helped few friends out in the past. So my aunt came to ask if I can spare $7,000. I told her I'd have to think about it. $7,000 is a lot of money, but something I can afford to throw away if I want to and not have to worry about it. I'd never forgiven them for what they did when I desperately needed them more than ever, so I decided I was going to make sure to rub salt in the wound. So by evening, I purchased a ticket to Cyprus and posted about it on Facebook, then called around and got one female friend to go out with me. I took her to an expensive restaurant, and of course I posted about that and a picture on Facebook. This is where my family will see, and I've been spending a good amount of money in the time my aunt and uncle need me. After I did this, I went to my aunt and explained to her that I understand the hardship she's going through. I then told her that I've been in a situation where I needed her help, but she couldn't help me. So I hope she understands that I cannot help her now. Good for you for not giving him a cent. Your aunt has no shame and likely will never learn shame. She asked you for $7K? Pack sand, woman, pack sand. Hey, thank you guys for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.